Guide, Program 19 PLZ 99022.
Jill, how do you feel about fluffy ducks?
Love 'em.
Does nuclear power turn you on at all?
Nah, only the washing machine and the kettle.
Interested in films, theatre and local history?
Yeah, especially in Gloucester.
Well, we better get a move on then.
Because it's time for...
The Pleasure Guide. Hi, welcome to the programme that tells you what's on, what's what and what's where.
Yes, this week we go to Hinkley Point Power Station to find out how wildlife and nuclear power go together on a free day out in West Somerset.
People of all ages will love seeing the ducklings and other birds being born in the hatchery at Slimbridge Wildfowl Trust during the most productive time of the year.
You are here for a proper Victorian education. You are not here for your entertainment.
And we find out what life was like in a Victorian classroom. Now, pay attention, Lisa James.
First, good news for fans of Michelle Pfeiffer because she's at a cinema near you from today.
She's starring with Treat Williams and Whoopi Goldberg in a story about what happens to a family when a child goes missing.
Deep End of the Ocean has been described as one of the best films to come out of America this year.
Here, the devastating effect of losing a child is slowly corroding the relationship between the devoted mother.
Guide, Program 19 PLZ 99022.
Jill, how do you feel about fluffy ducks?
Love 'em.
Does nuclear power turn you on at all?
Nah, only the washing machine and the kettle.
Interested in films, theatre and local history?
Yeah, especially in Gloucester.
Well, we better get a move on then.
Because it's time for...
The Pleasure Guide. Hi, welcome to the programme that tells you what's on, what's what and what's where.
Yes, this week we go to Hinkley Point Power Station to find out how wildlife and nuclear power go together on a free day out in West Somerset.
People of all ages will love seeing the ducklings and other birds being born in the hatchery at Slimbridge Wildfowl Trust during the most productive time of the year.
You are here for a proper Victorian education. You are not here for your entertainment.
And we find out what life was like in a Victorian classroom. Now, pay attention, Lisa James.
First, good news for fans of Michelle Pfeiffer because she's at a cinema near you from today.
She's starring with Treat Williams and Whoopi Goldberg in a story about what happens to a family when a child goes missing.
Deep End of the Ocean has been described as one of the best films to come out of America this year.
Here, the devastating effect of losing a child is slowly corroding the relationship between the devoted mother and her husband.
It's like I'm standing under this giant snowbank, and if I move 1 inch in any direction, it's going to come crashing down and bury me.
Honey, it's...
Do you know, I don't dare to think of him for a full minute. 1 inch, and the whole thing's gonna come down, and you are gonna have to raise these kids by yourself.
Bethy, I'm doing that now.
Oh, that's right. Pat's always been the rock. Isn't that what it said in People magazine? There was Pat holding together that poor crazy woman and those sweet little kids. Oh, you are such a hero,
All right,
Pat.
but stop this.
You would never have let Ben get lost.
I mean it. Stop
would you,
it, Beth.
Pat? You would never have been such a bad parent who can't remember the sandwiches. Self-righteous son of a...
I'm not self-righteous. I'm right. Kids don't just vanish up in smoke. Kids don't just get lost. People lose them.
They certainly do. Meanwhile, other films to consider include The Honest Courtesan, playing the Cirencester cinema from today.
Starring gorgeous Rufus Sewell and Catherine McCormack, it's a passionate tale of a Venetian debutante whose success brings everything but the man she adores.
Meanwhile, The Warriors versus the DJs is a novel idea showing at the Cube Cinema in Bristol at the weekend.
Yes, cult masterpiece The Warriors gets an overhaul as DJs mix sound to accompany the action of the gangster flick.
Brilliant idea. And finally, if you fancy a touch of the offbeat, Aussie film Oscar and Lucinda is on at the Guildhall Arts Centre in Gloucester over the weekend too.
Based on a book by Peter Carey, the period story features an odd couple played by Ralph Fiennes and Kate Blanchett, who decide to forego gambling to build a glass church and move it down a river. Mad for it!
8:38's much quieter than it used to be, don't you think, Jill?
Hardly recognise it. Are you sure you know where we're going?
No, I don't. But never mind, because halfway between Bristol and Gloucester, Lisa James has found an ideal place for a stopover, especially for flighty types.
That would suit you, then.
It's open for visits 364 days a year and is a fun day out for all the family. So if birds are your thing, then Slimbridge is the place to be.
We're the world's largest collection of waterfowl. We hold, at the Slimbridge Centre, we hold around 2,500 birds from all around the world.
Now this weekend in Slimbridge you can take part in some downy duckling days where you can see these little babies actually being born. You can see the embryos in the eggs, you can see them popping out, and they're all kept in incubators. Tina's just going to show you some.
In here is the incubation room. We've got all the incubators set up in here, and these are hatches where the eggs will hatch.
So how do you know that an egg is nearly ripe, so to speak?
We can tell by the size of the airspace, and we can look into the egg and check out the embryo and see if it's okay.
Can we do that now?
Yep, sure.
Excellent. So you can actually see, it's like having a scan then for a woman, yeah? You can actually see the little baby.
There once was an ugly duckling with feathers.
Oh my, look at that.
There's its beak. It's trying to make the initial pip to emerge from the shell. This one here is a shell duck, which is the same as the egg that I've just showed you.
Wow.
They haven't been out long.
Oh, they're quite rough, aren't they?
They need to dry out and get fluffy.
Hello, little baby. Hello. Oh, look at them. Oh, they're gorgeous. Hello. He just looked at me then. That little one just looked at me.
In here we've got the youngsters that have just come out of the hatcher, and we put them in a drying coop for a while.
A visit to Slimbridge is guaranteed to turn every heart to jelly, and the conservation practices at the reserve make sure that every bird gets a home and every chick gets a surrogate mother. Now, I'm not a soft touch, but personally, I could have adopted a lot of them. So how old would these be?
They're about 3 or 4 weeks.
Get out of here. And he went with a quack and a waddle and a quack.
So cute. I said, I've got one in my pocket, I'm taking it home with me.
So Slimbridge is the place to be for lovely, fluffy things.
That includes our Lisa.
Of course. And shares another rare creature who's been a star since the 60s.
This is her new single, All or Nothing, released next Monday, together with some more ideas to inform and entertain you in the coming week.
I've been calling your name, got that lonely feeling again, calling out your name. Do you hear me? Do you want me? Baby, it's all or nothing now. Don't wanna run and I can't walk out. Breaking my heart if you leave me now. Don't wanna wait forever. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? Baby, it's all or nothing. Baby, it's all or nothing now. I've been trying to get to your heart, but I'm chasing shadows.
Now, can a film made way back in 1941 really be the greatest ever?
Well, that's what many critics still say of Citizen Kane, the story of the rise and fall of newspaper tycoon Charles Foster Kane, played by Orson Welles.
It charts his extraordinary business and social triumphs and his ultimate failings as success changes him irreparably and he dies alone in Xanadu, his fantastic estate.
It also stars Joseph Cotton and Agnes Moorehead as his beautiful, long-suffering wife.
I absolutely adore you.
Oh, Charles, even newspapermen have to sleep.
I'll call Mr. Bernstein, have him put off my appointments until noon. What time is it?
Oh, I don't know, it's late.
It's early.
Charles, do you know how long you kept me waiting last night while you went to the newspaper for 10 minutes? What do you do on a newspaper in the middle of the night?
Emily, my dear, your only correspondent is the Inquirer.
Sometimes I think I'd prefer a rival of flesh and blood.
Oh, Emily, I don't spend that much time on the newspaper.
It isn't just the time. It's what you print. Attacking the president.
You mean Uncle John?
I mean the president of the United States.
He's still Uncle John. He's still a well-meaning fathead who's letting a pack of high-pressure crooks run his administration. This whole oil scandal.
He happens to be the president, Charles, not you.
That's a mistake that will be corrected one of these days.
Your Mr. Bernstein sent Junior the most incredible atrocity yesterday, Charles. I simply can't have it in the nursery.
Mr. Bernstein is apt to pay a visit to the nursery now and then.
Does he have to?
Yes.
Really, Charles? People will think...
What I tell them to think.
Yes, the story of a man who was loved and hated in equal quantities. And much the same could be said of the stark buildings which dominate the Somerset shoreline near Bridgewater. But Dave has discovered that these days, Hinkley Point is where atomic power meets azaleas in a Back to the Future kind of day out.
For a day out with a difference, how about Hinkley Point Power Station Reactor B? It's a case of earplugs and high-pressure technology as you discover the secrets of this 1,220 megawatt 10-story reactor. But hang on, there's something else going on here.
It's a great day out because you've got the technology of the power station and you've got nature, you've got the flowers and the birds that you can have a look round as well.
Stand back.
Rita, this is a model of the core of the reactor, isn't it?
It is, yes, and this is a model of the fuel that we put inside. It's uranium, it's a fuel pin, and it goes inside our fuel element.
Great, so do some refueling then, so that we can have some electricity for the next year. What's next?
If we'd like to come this way.
Thank you. This really is the place where mile after mile of pipework precedes mile after gorgeous mile of nature trail. The visitor centre is open daily, and with a nuclear reactor that boasts 30 years of generating, a stroll in the wood shows you how man and Mother Nature have formed a close relationship. So plans for space travel, or is this an anti-radiation fashion item?
No, it's a suit for when we go down inside the boilers. Every 3 years we have to do safety checks, and we have pipes in there to keep them cool.
From Moonwalk to Nature Walk, the mile-long trail has wheelchair access, an ancient trackway, and rare species of plants and flowers. It's also right by the coast. This is the bit I've been really looking forward to, where all the buttons and gadgets are in the control room.
Yes, this is the nerve centre of the station. We have to have at least 3 people in here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some of the equipment you can see in here was actually put in when it was commissioned.
OK, Rita, I think I've learned something today. So I haven't done this since school. Can I just take you through on this diagram that I've just prepared here for us? Presumably, the atom is split here for the uranium. Then the heat from that, in like this great big kettle, creates the steam.
Right.
That then goes into here, drives the turbine.
Right.
The turbine turns the electromagnet, which makes the electricity so that people can make their cups of tea during the ad breaks in the pleasure guide. Is that right?
That's right.
I have learned something.
Give me steam. I'm how you feel can make it real. Real as anything you've seen. Get alive with the dreamer's dream. You know your cream from your red. You know the quick from the dead. So much better than the rest. You think you think.
That's good.
fun.
Yes, and if you're coming to the Bath and West show tomorrow, don't forget to come and say hello on the HTV Road Show.
Now, more ideas and information about things to do and places to go after the break.
When we'll also be talking to Peter Hammill, one of the stars of the Bath Fringe Festival, and discovering aspects of Victorian life in Old Gloucester.
See you soon.
Hello and welcome back. It's a curiosity of show business life that someone can be virtually unheard of in their own country, but be a major star overseas. Peter Hammill from Bath is a case in point. He's produced no less than 40 albums in a career which has taken him all over the world. He's also influenced the likes of Genesis and XTC. He's starring at the Bath Fringe tomorrow in his first British gig in 18 months, but he's also with us right now.
Peter Hammill, welcome to the Pleasure Guide.
Pleasure.
Good to see you playing in the UK.
Yes, finally.
Well, you're from Bath and it's the first time in 18 months, so why? And why the Fringe?
Well, first of all, I play for about 3 months a year, but usually it's abroad, all over the place, all over the planet. If I'm playing in Britain, often it tends to be in London rather than in Bath. So every so often, I think this is the third time that I play for the Fringe, and I think it's a very positive aspect of Bath life. Especially since my studio is down in the heart of Woolcott Nation as well. You know, I think it's something that has to be done, really.
Well, I mean, it's true to say that you're a well-known artist, but do you think you're well-known more in foreign climes than you are in this country?
I think I've got a very dedicated, small and sometimes manic audience all over the place, some of whom have been with me for the 30 years that I've been doing this. Right. I've got an awful lot of musicians and producers, people who are in my fan base rather than people who buy records.
But this is it. I understand when you're an influence on a generation, as we've heard just then. But, I mean, what do you think of the resurgence of progressive rock? Because that's where you started. It's all come back with the likes of Radiohead and...
Well, technically I started in underground, because I was just merging into 68, kind of the Soft Machine, Arthur Brown kind of era.
Right.
Then, obviously, we were known as a progressive band. I think, you know, as long as music is done with heart and soul and proper force, then it's great, you know. I don't peg myself actually specifically back to that era and in the time since the 70s. I've done, you know, everything from music concrete to manic electric guitar stuff to the kind of the odd duo that I'm playing with Stuart at the Fringe, which is...
Well, spanning 4 decades, where do you think it's going to go?
Where is it going to go?
Next year.
I think, I hope that it goes to an area where there'll be a lot of splintering and that individual audiences will pick up special things that they're interested in, rather than the way that it is to a large extent at the moment, where there's just a mass thing that goes out across the whole planet. You know, major records are released and they're going to be having the campaigns everywhere simultaneously.
And with 41 albums, you're a man who should know as well.
Well, I'm a man who should know, but my albums don't sell in those quantities, I'm afraid.
I bet they will when it all comes back big time as well.
Yeah.
Good luck with the Fringe. We'll see you playing, of course, with Stuart Gordon a little later on.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much for now. Peter Hammill, all the best. Jill.
At the Gloucester History Festival, they've gone back in time to find out what it was like going to school a century ago. Remember, that was a time when it was held that children should be seen and not heard, which wouldn't suit today's pupils at all, and it certainly would not suit Lisa James.
It's always exciting looking back at history and the way that our ancestors used to live. But as part of the Gloucester History Festival this year, you can actually experience the horrors of a Victorian schoolroom. Now, I've got me penny, on goes my mop cap, let's go and join the school mom.
You are here for a proper Victorian education. You are not here for your entertainment.
And that meant me too.
We have a number of events going on through the 5 weeks that it goes on until July the 4th, with great spectacular finish in the docks with Victorian weekend there. You can go to the Guildhall Arts Centre and there are a number of films with a Victorian flavour. There are exhibitions at the Folk Museum and at the City Museum, quizzes that you can take part in. We have a picnic, a right royal picnic in Hillfield Gardens in which Queen Victoria will be present, with bands and tug-of-war and Victorian sideshows and amusements, and that should be good fun.
Going back to Victorian times, the lessons can be quite scary and completely different to today's teaching methods.
James.
Present, ma'am.
Garwood. Geffins.
What we're trying to do is give the children an experience, an inkling of what it would have felt like to actually go to a school like that. Obviously, it's very, very edited. It's a very condensed, intense hour. What's pushed into an hour is snippets almost of what they would have had.
Start now.
1 2 2, 2 2 4, 3 2 6.
This is just a little example of what happens at the festival, but it sure put me through my paces.
7 2s are 14, 8 2s are 16, 9 2s are 18, 10 2s are 20, 11 2s are 22, 12 2s are 24.
Give it up, 'cause you know we made it. 21st century The 21st century is gonna be cool. It's wild, real wild. It's gonna be so wild. The whole world's gonna go crazy. We'll be
Now, before we go, we have a couple of competition winners for you.
Yes, 2 pairs of tickets to Jesus Christ Superstar at the Bristol Hippodrome go to Mrs P. Craddock from Taunton.
And respectively, Mrs Frances Freebury of Swindon. Well done to you.
Thanks to all of you who entered and correctly named the movie Notting Hill. Another competition next week.
Finally, this week, the Bath Festival wouldn't be the same without the Fringe.
Perhaps you should try one.
Maybe. Mad, bad or brilliant, these acts will be lighting up the streets and parks of the Georgian city until Sunday week.
And here's one of them. Peter Hammill and Stuart Gordon, sometimes known as the Demon Fiddler.
They're starring in Victoria Park tomorrow evening.
So here's a taste of what to expect, as well as other suggestions for your delectation.
Shall I have a Fringe, do you think?
Yeah, a blue one would be nice there.
See you next week.
I can't think of anything I did or was doing. I can't seem to get a hold on what's come to pass. Here with half a mind locked on something else and half a finger in the glass, since you ask. I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be going. In the end, every journey's only pawing the ground. And I've half a mind just to jack it in. Oh, but for this torn-off ticket stub I just found, since you ask about the state I'm in, I'll do my best to pull myself around. And easier if you say it's so. think of anyone that I'd rather be with. But I don't see why you should want to stick here with me. When I can't even find what was on my mind, for all the holes punched in my memory. It's a wasteland, and I'm terrified to admit, to let go, to accept. I don't know, all those blanks won't be filled. I'll be found by the chill of the glacier.